Hey, everybody, it's Julie Hoffman with the Gold Nuggets podcast. I want to welcome you here, whether you're listening or watching. I have the incredible Darren Jacklin with me. And, we're so lucky to hear from him. I met Darren going on, I would say, between 15 and 20 years ago. He had met my husband at a John DeMartini event, and my husband came home and said, we've got to go to this networking event that Darren is hosting at the Earl's Tin Palace on Jasper Avenue.
That's right, in Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah, I remember like it was yesterday. Yeah.
We went there, and there are people in your life that you meet along the way that are just magic. And Darren is definitely magic for me and thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. And he's here to serve as he always does. We're going to touch on some really interesting things. And at the end, we're going to talk about a project that he and his lovely partner, Tatiana, and he and a big group of people are doing to help really impact the world in such a good way. So excited for that. Thank you for being here, Darren.
Oh, my pleasure. Grateful to serve.
So what I want to do is just kind of start out with how did it all start? How did it all start for you as an entrepreneur? There are so many folks out there who maybe are in jobs that they hate or doing something where they don't feel satisfied. And that's probably why they're listening to this. And hey, everybody, shout out to you if you're going through that. Entrepreneurship can be a struggle too. What was it like though for you, Darren? What made you go on this journey that you've been on?
Great question. If you want the full transparency, honest answer, be childhood trauma.
Okay.
Would the truth is, I was misdiagnosed with a learning disability and a reading disability in public school, failed grade 1, and was put into special education grade 1 to grade 12. So when I was 7 years old, I created my first business called Rent-A-Kit. I'd go out and cut grass, shovel snow, deliver newspapers in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, Canada. And what I realized was I'm a very practical person. I don't like being told what to do. I make a terrible employee. I've been an employee a few times, but I like to, run my own life, run my own schedule. And so what I realized at a very young age, when I was out knocking on doors, what I discovered was that as human beings, all we are is a network of conversations, and opportunities live inside of conversations. So whatever I really, really, really want in my life, if I just go start having conversations with strangers and create possibilities just by having conversations and getting people to know them and them getting to know, like, and trust me, then opportunities can get created. So if I need to generate more money, I go have conversations. If I'm looking for opportunities, if I'm single, if you want a business partner, whatever it is, it all comes through strangers of having conversations. And so at a very young age, I realized that whatever I really, really want in my life, if I just go have conversations and talk to people. Now, I was shy, I was introverted, I was scared, I was very insecure. So what I did is I took training with two very well-known organizations. One was Dale Carnegie Training. He wrote a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a classic book. And the other organization was Toastmasters International. So I spent 11 years with Toastmasters, immersed myself into the deep end of the swimming pool with Toastmasters, and signed up for anything I possibly could, went to a lot of events all over North America. And same with Dale Carnegie. I went deep into a lot of the training development programs with Dale Carnegie and with Toastmasters to overcome my shyness, my awkwardness, my fears, my doubts, my worries, my insecurities, to build my self-confidence so I can learn how to public speak, communicate. And then just over the last 10 years, I've spent a lot of time and money and energy on taking courses on teams, how to build effective teams. So I don't have to run the day-to-day operations. I can have people run the day-to-day operations, and I stay in my lane as a visionary, and I can people do an integration. So the cool thing about with the internet today and technology is that you can be anywhere on the planet and access mentors and role models and coaches and guides and information that's practical, absorb it, and then apply it and see measurable results in your life. And so that was a big turning point for me, was realizing that I have a certain genius in my life, and everything else, I source other people to help me grow and expand and develop myself.
Mm-hmm. Now, why did you ever have a job? And
good
then
question.
what happened after that?
So it's interesting. In my past, if you went through my past and interviewed people I grew up with, right, in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, I always went and worked with wealthy people. I always found the most successful people that were in the Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce, the Women in Business, the YPO groups in the different communities. because it wasn't more than just, the paycheck, which is important because I was living paycheck to paycheck and panic to panic, but it was what could I learn? So it was what, Jim Rohn, one of my mentors years ago, taught me is learn to get from the day, not through the day. Learn to get from the job, not through the job. Like, looking at the clock saying, oh my God, how much time I got left on the clock before I go home. It was like, what can I learn here? And so what I wanted to learn was the structures, the systems, the processes, delegation, how to raise capital, how to grow a business, how to see opportunity zones. So if I got around really successful men and women that were really experienced, and different than entrepreneurs are different than business owners. So you get some people that go to school and get an MBA or a PhD or take the college university route, and they come out and they buy a franchise or they buy a handyman business. And a lot of those people, they may have good credit. They may have had money from savings from a job or a career. So they've got ways to capitalize on what they do. But I've always went for people that were the bootstrap entrepreneurs that started with no money, building the airplanes that are flying it, and had a lot of peaks and valleys and panics to panics. And from there, they persevered. And the risks were high. Stress levels were high in the beginning for the first 3 to 5 years, but they persevered and they broke through. And that's what I learned from was how to deal with adversities and failures and challenges and setbacks. And I've had many throughout my life in my past. I mitigate a lot now through risk management, and I'm a lot smarter and wiser now and have teams of people around me. But in the early days, a lot of it was just hustle and grit and grind all the time. But I learned now from being around other people who have more history and experience to get around those people and have a seat at the table. And I learn from those people. So now when I want to invest in something or get involved with something, I do a deep dive of discovering due diligence and asking questions and being curious before I say yes and jump into something. I just last week, Tiffany and I just invested into a salad dressing company. A few months ago, we invested into a barbecue business that we have people run the day-to-day operations. Well, I knew nothing about salad dressing other than it's a $74 billion a year industry globally. But I have a lot of contacts that can bring into some of the biggest retail stores in North America and get it on the products on the shelves. And then I get paid every time somebody checks out with that product, right? And have an equity position. So I learn now by watching other successful people, what they do, because success leaves clues, and then I model it and then I apply it in my own life.
So, you've been around long enough, and so have I. What are your thoughts on the difference between, it sounds like you went to hundreds, if not thousands of live networking events.
Sure.
That's all there was.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on live networking events versus all these virtual networking events that folks are hosting these days?
Great question. So when I used to, first of all, go live in person to seminars and workshops, I would leave depressed, completely depressed, defeated, because here I am just trying to pay my bills on time and trying to earn an extra few $100s a month to pay my bills on time. And I'm watching somebody on stage at a workshop or a seminar or conference talk about some new car or some family vacation they took or some new watch they bought. And I'm thinking, that's just such a gap. I just want to know when I wake up tomorrow, what do I do? What's the next steps? What do I do? Okay, you say do revenue generating activities. Well, be specific. It's too general. I know what that means, right? And so I would leave confused, defeated, upset. And so then I would go to events saying, okay, I just need to know, give me a roadmap, give me a plan of what I can do. And so I've attended thousands of events over. I find that I personally like to do in-person events versus online events. And I know it saves time and travel and expenses, but I find with my personality, so from my own experience, I'm distracted. So if I'm on a Zoom call for 8 hours on a course, I'm texting people in the background. So I'm not fully present, I'm not fully in integrity, right? Because I signed up, I gave my word to be in the course, but I'm still managing things outside. Or my dog wants to go outside or go for a hike or go for a walk. But when I'm in an event, then I can shut all the technology off, but do not disturb on, delegate things, and I can be fully immersed in the environment. But also too, I find from my own practical experience, I find that when I'm in person, it's more relational. When I'm online, it's more transactional. Because during break time, okay, you turn your screen off and you go to use the restroom, you grab something to eat, and you come back on after the break. Whereas in the event, we're going for breakfast, lunch, or dinner with the person and having, a seat at the table with that person, get to know that person more intimately. Plus, also you can watch behavior, right? So as you're looking as part of your discovery and due diligence, you can look around and say, hey, this person would be great to have a conversation with, because all we are is a network conversations. Whereas online, I'm Google searching people and see if they're on LinkedIn or social media, but I don't really get a chance to see how they are because everybody's got a front row seat on the Zoom call to the event.
Right. I agree completely. Live events are so important. So with that, what are some of your key strategies to networking, like when they're at an event, and
Mhm.
whether it's at an event or making phone calls or attending Zoom events and participating? I mean, what have been some of your most effective networking strategies? And folks, the reason I'm asking this is Darren knows millions of people
Yeah,
because all he does is travel and travel and travel and shake, or all he did, at least for decades, is
yeah,
travel, 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 shake hands, meet people, create relationships, try things, fail,
yeah.
try, succeed, try, fail, try, succeed, succeed. He knows what he's talking about. So what are some of those key tasks that people need to do on a regular basis?
Right. So key thing, first thing is you want to be memorable versus forgettable. And what that means is when I meet somebody, always find a way to create a sincere acknowledgement, compliment, or recognition. So if I'm on an airplane, for example, and I don't know anybody, I arrive onto an airplane, first thing I'm looking is for an opportunity is who I know statistically, I know out of a couple hundred people on a plane or 50 or 100 people on a plane, someone's going to need them to put their luggage in upper up top there, right? So I'll find an opportunity to get out of my seat and actually do that. Take somebody's luggage and put it in the upper bin is a big thing, right? And just do that. Praise and recognizing, catching people doing things right. So if I see a mom with her children, I'm like, wow, that's a special moment there. I'll go up and acknowledge him or her. But always looking for ways to catch people doing things right and then verbally acknowledging it. I still, to this day, send out handwritten thank you cards. In 2024, I still lick a stamp, have an envelope, and send it out by the postal service to people. Because if you look at the last 6 months, approximately how many thank you cards did you get in the mail? When I ask people how many approximately did you get, people say 0.
Mhm.
So that find out what's most important to people in their lives, right? Family, occupation, recreation, money, or motivation. So form, FORM. So family, occupation, recreation, money, or motivation. And I find out, and then what I do is in my phone, I actually build a profile of everybody. So there's a great book called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman, came out years ago.
Yeah.
So what I do is when I first meet someone, I play the love language game. Does this person like physical touch? Is it quality time? Is it acts of service? Is it words of affirmation, or is it gifts? And I prioritize what is this person's 1, 2, and 3. Primary, secondary is my focus of primary and secondary. So when I meet somebody that's like, okay, they're a physical touch person, or they're a words of affirmation person, or they're an acts of service person. And I actually put that in my phone once I have their contact information. Then I start to build a profile of them, of what they like, what's their hobbies, what's their interests. And a lot of times people say, well, why do you do that? Because it's all about building relationship equity. So somebody gets to know me, like me, and trust me, so I become relational versus transactional. Because a lot of times people today on social media or on the internet are transactional, right? They friend request you and then they try and pitch you for a product, service, or opportunity.
Yeah.
Whereas I want to get to know that person and let that unfold over a long-term period of time. Like if you came to a dinner party that tonight would be doing, you walked around, you asked people, how long have you known Darren Jacklin for? 10 years, 15 years, 20, 25 years. Everybody's known me a long period of time. We've probably all been there to these events where people are raising money. And it's like, how long have you known so and so for? Oh, I just met him a couple weeks ago. Cool. Okay, does anybody in the room know this person more than 4 months? Because this person just cycles through people all the time. And so behavior never lies. And so I want people around me who've known me for long periods of time, just like with my rent-a-kid business, when I started that in 7, 8, 9 years of age, now I'm almost 52 years of age, we're 45 years plus later, and those friends are still great friends with me to this day from when I was a kid with my rent-a-kid business. They follow me on social media. We interact still.
Going back to that, what you essentially, let me get this straight. You basically created a team of other friends.
Yes.
And you had them do jobs and you probably just took a cut.
Correct. I would knock on the door and
Yep.
make the initial conversation and contact with the person, negotiate the fee for service of what we're doing with cutting the lawn or raking the leaves or painting the fence, and then find the other kids to run the lawnmowers and do the weed whacking and do all the stuff and run the day-to-day operations. So I was guy out there doing sales and marketing, and other people running the day-to-day operations.
Right. Rent-a-kid, Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
Yep, Speedy Creek.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. All right. Tell us about your biggest or a big struggle that you've encountered over all these last you're slightly into your 5th decade.
Yes.
No, you're into your 6th. You've completed your 5th.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to say I'm 50. Is that cool? Yeah,
I love
I just completed my 5th decade.
it. I love it.
Yeah, what have been some of your big struggles and how did you get through them?
So two big things. One would be vulnerability, right? Because growing up as a kid, because of childhood trauma, I learned to compartmentalize things. So when things got really stressful around my family or my household or in school, I would detach emotionally because emotions were too much. It was overwhelming to process and feel. And it was a loss of control for me. So I would compartmentalize things. So when I got later on in life, I got tested as a job or career, and I actually got tested. Work as a sniper because I could take high risk situations and compartmentalize it and detach my emotion and just go in and get the job or task done. And
Okay.
so I think that served me a lot in business, but also there's benefits and drawbacks. The drawbacks is I didn't get a chance in the early days of my life to connect deeply with people because they could see me. And I even look back when I first started corporate training years ago, phenomenal at preparation and speaking and stage present and producing practical results, but the audience couldn't feel me because there was no heart. It was all intellectual connection and conversation and systems and strategies and processes. And so vulnerability was a big thing, working on vulnerability and realizing it's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness, because I was raised in an environment that if I was fully transparent, put all my cards on the table and just like, hey, I'm struggling right now financially, right? Like if that was going on in my life, I wouldn't declare that. I wouldn't announce that because that was an embarrassment for me. So now, if you look at my life as I've evolved, I talk about in my 30s being homeless, being on the streets, living on welfare, having an R9 credit rating, being so financially broke, I couldn't even afford bankruptcy because I couldn't afford to pay the fees. But 15, 20 years ago, I'd never talk about that. But now I realize the more that I share about my adversities, my failures, my challenges, my struggles, the more people want to step up and serve because it's authentic and it's vulnerable. Because people think there's something off with Darren, but I can't figure out what it is. Well, I wasn't being fully authentic and transparent with people. So that was a big thing. Another thing was lying to myself. I used to lie about my health, lie about my finances, lie about my relationships. I would exaggerate things, I would embellish things. And now as I look back and reflect over the last decade or so, what's transformed my life was really being accountable and responsible to my word, my integrity. Because before, when I was younger, I had no integrity, and then I had selective integrity based on the advantages of what it would give me. So I'd be fully in integrity if I can meet a girl, or if I close a deal or make some money, I'm fully in integrity. And then I was selective integrity. And then I realized through some of my adversities and challenges and financial pressures in my past, I realized that without integrity, nothing works. So now in my life, I'm very mindful of what I give my word to, that my words create my world. So I'm very mindful of what I give my word to, whether it's in a text message, it's an email, it's a voicemail, it's a phone call, it's a conversation. I'm very mindful of what I give my word to and what I'm accountable and responsible, what I say yes to. That's huge. And then in the last 5 years, I've transformed my health, fitness, and nutrition. Climbed some of the biggest mountains in the world. And that came as I had to upgrade my values and my beliefs from lying to myself. Because I never, in school, I was always the kid who was always picked last for any sports team. I was very clumsy as a kid, was not athletic. If you and I went and did a dance someplace, you'd see me, I'm out of sync with the music. I'm very visual, auditory, kinesthetic, right? So I got to see things, hear things, then experience or feel things. Right. So kinesthetic's not my primary. And so lying to myself about, hey, you're not an athlete, you're clumsy, you're never going to amount to much in sports and fitness, you're not a gym guy. And then when I started to upgrade my values and beliefs, and then when I was 38 years old, I got so disgusted with myself, living panic to panic, financials up and down all the time. And at 38, I got so disgusted with myself. Boom, that was a turning point in my life. I said, I'm going to dedicate my 40s to getting my money right. And I did. I created financial independence. And so that was a turning point when I got so disgusted with myself to stop lying to myself about how things really were financially, health-wise, and relationship-wise. But until I confronted myself, I was just buying my own PR. And that was a big thing. And now I'm very mindful of, hey, when I say something, okay, is this, gives me my past would be, exaggerate it or embellish it. Now I'm very clear on what I say out of my mouth.
Yeah. So if you, there's probably some folks, maybe even only one. What's a good first step to make that turnaround?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's the hardest part.
So we all have mobile phones. So what you do is you take 25 people on your cell phone, send them a text message. It's going to be an uncomfortable experience, not going to be pleasurable at all. and you send them a message, listen, I'm doing some personal growth or some internal growth and development. Would you please share with me 3 things that I need to, that you would consider I need to work on in my life that are blind spots to me? Because I had a lot of blind spots, and I still do. It's interesting because I have people all the time come to me now and they say, Darren, I need to hire a coach or a business coach. Can you make a recommendation? So I said, well, sure. Let me ask you some questions first. So I started asking them questions. Are you in a relationship? Are you married, single, divorced, separated? And they're like, well, no, I'm in a relationship. Okay, great. So you need a business coach, you need a coach. Okay, great. The best coach you need is your spouse or your partner. You just need to enroll her into what you're doing with your business. I'm like, well, what? Yeah, I need to go hire a coach there outside my household. I'm like, no, your wife knows your strengths, your weaknesses, your insecurities, your fears, your doubts, your worries, and all your blind spots, but you don't listen. You're going to pay a lot of money to hire a coach that's going to tell you the same advice as your spouse. And like, well, I said, yeah. I said, Tatiana's been the greatest coach in my life, and me hiring other women to run the day-to-day operations has been the greatest blessing in my life. I said, Tatiana tripled my financial net worth of us being together. Like, people really said, yeah, because I started listening to her and realizing she wasn't nagging or complaining or bitching. She was giving me great feedback that was uncomfortable to hear it and let it land with me. But when I started to realize that I was in my image and my ego, thinking, oh my gosh, she's coming from a place of love and generosity and contribution to enrich my life. And she's not doing it to push me down. She's doing it to push me up. But I'm not taking the open feedback. That was a turning point in my life. And so I realized now that around me, I have women around me all the time that always give me feedback. And I always say, I'm just voluntold, right? But
Wait,
it's so powerful.
You're just what? Voluntold.
I'm voluntold. I don't volunteer.
Okay.
I'm voluntold. It's just yes, dear. And I do that. Because what I realize now in my life, and maybe 20 years ago, I wouldn't have believed this, but I listen to women's intuition now, big time. And we have a 3-step process within our group of companies where the intuition is either calm, cautious, or nervous. So I'll ask Tatiana and some of the ladies that work with us, I said, is your intuition number 1 calm, green light? Is it cautious, yellow light? Or is it nervous, red light? So if we're looking to invest in something or acquiring something or hiring somebody, I'll say, are you calm, cautious, or nervous? And it's 1, 2, or 3, and they'll go, I'm calm. Okay, great, green light. The Tatiana says, I'm cautious. We do more research, more due diligence, ask more questions. If it's nervous, red light, we don't get involved.
So that is by the way, so many gold nuggets so far. That's why I call this the Gold Nuggets podcast. The first thing I want to really go over again is the form for networking. What does that acronym stand for?
So family. So people want to talk about their families, their occupation or their career, or their study, going to school, right? So family, occupation, recreation, right? Somebody likes to recreation, hobbies, or sports. Whether
like
playing or watching.
What do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do in your spare time? Yeah.
And then money or motivation. Some people get into a career because they're money motivated for that career. They got to pay off debts, or they want to buy things, or they want to travel, or they want to have a family. So that motivator is money for them. It could be whatever it is, or it's a motivation. Some people aren't motivated by money. They have a motivation to do something. Like, for example, when I was younger, money wasn't my motivator. What motivated me was being good enough. Right? I'll show you, I'll prove to you, because I was always that insecure kid growing up, never being good enough, never being smart enough. So my early days of my corporate training career, making all those phone calls, knocking on all those doors and all those proposals, was to prove to people that I could actually go and train the largest corporations in the world without a formal academic education. Because I was competing against people with MBAs and PhDs from the brightest schools and minds in the world. And I was the one that was getting the corporate training opportunities. So that was a driver for me of significance in my life. And then once I achieved so much success in that, it was unfulfilled and it was empty. Because I'm like, okay, I've achieved all these corporations, these 400 companies I'm training, but I still don't feel like I'm good enough. I don't feel fulfilled. I don't feel enriched. And that was an internal thing of me building that internal relationship with myself, because externally I was great. And so what I realized was success is not something you go out in the world to pursue, because I was pursuing success every day. I was hustling and grinding every day to pursue success. When I realized success is not something you go out in the world to pursue, but rather success is something you attract into your life by the person that you become. So I was focused on becoming an attractive person. And that's the thing when you're networking with people. It's about how you are out there, how you show up, how you connect with people, because people can feel you energetically. So the key thing is to be authentic, be real. And the more transparent you can be with people, the more people want to help you. But if you walk into a room and you're pretending that everything's okay, and yet people can feel that, hey, something's off with this guy's relationship, or something's off with this person's finances, something doesn't seem right. Like, I remember when I was flat broke and I was borrowing friends of mine's vehicles, and I was parking them a couple blocks down the street in the back alley because I couldn't afford to pay for the parking meters. People knew something was off. When I was going to $10 breakfasts trying to close $1 million deal, but like, Darren, you're at a $10 breakfast. It's $10 for breakfast. You're trying to close $1 million deal. Not going to happen. There's nobody in the room that's qualified.
Mhm. I know. So yeah, you have to be careful where you go and who you're with. Absolutely.
Well, I had a situation one
And
time.
like, and well, sorry to interrupt, but that acronym FORMM, you just keep that in mind when you're networking, because you'll just the more people that you contact and talk to, if you have that, then you always have something to talk about. You always have something to ask people
That's right.
about. And people love talking about themselves. And then, like you said, I wouldn't call it second gold nugget. Another gold nugget I just remember is put it in your phone. Then you can't remember everything, but your phone can remember almost everything.
Absolutely.
And then, golly, what was asking 25 people in your contacts, what is it you want them to ask?
So you're going to ask 25 people in your phone, and you're not going to want to do this exercise. It's very uncomfortable.
No, I can imagine.
You're going to ask them, what are three key bullet points that you're going to work, that you see that are blind spots to yourself, that you would want them to consider that you yourself working on. Right. So like, to me, I used to be very impatient. I was an impatient person. I want to get things done, make things happen. So I was not a good listener. And then I became a selective listener based on if I could get something from people, being a go-getter, not a go-giver. So I got a lot of feedback from the 25 people there, and you're an impatient person. You're too intense. You got to dial it back. And so then when I started dialing it back, people thought I was on medication or smoking marijuana, because they're like, oh my gosh, you're just pretty chill. But what happened was I started hiking, and hiking got me out into nature and dealt with a lot of testosterone. I have high levels of testosterone. And so that was a big thing for me. But I was so driven, because from my childhood, it was all about achieving the goal. It was never the journey. It was always achieving the outcome. And so now I realize it's all about the journey, not about the destination of achieving the outcome. Because I was like a dog on a boat. I would see something, lock and load in there, and I'd be intensely focused, no matter what it takes, just to achieve the goal. Right. And then just to mitigate any type of distractions or shiny optics around me. Now I take a look around, and I dance in the conversation, in the sense, with people, and I'm going. So now I make it, when people look at my life now, I think, Darren, do you actually do anything other than hike? Like, what do you actually do? Because it confuses some people, because people see me out there all the time doing stuff, doing acts of service, which is my love language, in communities and stuff. But the work behind the scenes is working with teams of people to run the day-to-day operations. And I'm making lots of phone calls, text messages, emails, conversations throughout the day, but people don't see all that stuff.
Yeah, no, not necessarily. And so back to you and Tatiana, because this is big for folks. Nearly everybody is in a relationship. And, I personally, we've got the Okanagan Real Estate Investment Group, and people come out, and a lot of times it's a man without his wife, or a woman without her husband. And more times than I like to know, it's, oh, my wife's really not on board with this. So you and Tatiana started out, not knowing each other. So what are some strategies that you used, other than just stopping and finally figuring out how to listen to her? Was there a bit of an evolution there?
Oh, big time.
Because I remember when you met. And then I remember, I think it was 2 years later, you're like, Tatiana's changed my life. She's taken over the world, and she's retired from teaching. And by the way, folks, if you haven't met Tatiana, she is a force to be reckoned with. I'm so happy that you've been able to join together to really create a major, major positive impact. So can you think back to the evolution? Because some people are starting from zero, right? They want to go to a networking event, but maybe they're worried about what's going to happen at home.
Totally. Absolutely. Well, when Tish and I first got together, so myself being very entrepreneurial, right? Very driven. Tatiana come from the academia world of 35 years. She was a high school educator, 3 academic degrees, right? Living paycheck to paycheck. very accomplished. Me, I was a calculated risk taker, right? Very visionary. And so when we first came together, Robert Kiyosaki wrote a best-selling book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Then his second book called Cash Flow Quadrants, where he talks about the 4 quadrants: employee, self-employed, business owner, investor. So I always focus on the B&I quadrant, the business owner and the investor quadrant. So when I met Tatiana, she was 100% employee quadrant, right?
Yeah.
Job security, government worker, union, benefits. And so to me, we clashed in the early few years of our relationship. So for example, I would say to Tatiana, I'm flying to New York. I get from Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada, or Vancouver, Canada. I got to fly to New York for what? I'm going to meet somebody for lunch tomorrow.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're flying on the other side of North America for a 1-hour lunch meeting? Yeah, I'm meeting with a billionaire. Well, I don't care. You're not flying to New York City that's crazy. Are you absolutely crazy? You know how much the plane tickets cost and the hotel? And I'll fly there and fly back. So I would do these things to build relationship equity with people. I'd fly from Vancouver to Toronto multiple times, or San Francisco or Chicago or New York, just to meet somebody for a couple hours, or to attend an event in the evening, fly back the next day, or take the red eye. Well, it's absolutely crazy to somebody who comes from the employee background, right? And because I'm investing in relationships and I'm looking at opportunity zones, right? And there's no guarantee none of them are going to work, right? I'm just investing into them, hopefully that, something going to pay off. Or when we first got together, I'm flying business class because 1 of the 4 times I meet somebody, I close some deal and I monetize that. It pays for my other trips, right? And she's like, well, you're doing it to show off. And so, I'm like, no, I'm up in business class for business development. I'm staying at the nice 4- and 5-star hotels because that's where proximity is, because that's where money hangs out. That's where opportunities, that's where decision makers are. Because when I started, I was at the Days Inn and the Motel 6s and the Holiday Inns and the Ramada hotels. That was the early days of my corporate training career. So I graduated. So there was a lot of different things when we first got together, how I would look at things. I would always say, we don't have money. People don't have money problems in life. We don't have thinking problems in life. She's like, well, what are you talking about? There's no money in our bank account. I'm like, well, we'll visualize it. We'll have vision boards. Like, that's crazy. That's weird. What do you mean, put a vision board up on the wall? I'm like, yeah, we're going to go someplace for Christmas. We're going to put up on the wall. Like, that's stupid. Like, why would you cut pictures out of magazines and put them on the wall and start to visualize and do these affirmations every day? It was crazy to her. Because she came from the academic world. Nobody, 3 academic degrees, very smart woman, never saw any of that kind of stuff in the academia world. So I was drinking the Kool-Aid, right? And she was thinking I was absolutely crazy. And then when she started seeing things where I'd make a phone call and make $40,000, she's like, what the hell? You made one phone call, just made 40 grand in 2 hours? How the heck do you do that? And then I started making more money in a month than people with her friends with degrees are making in a year. I was making in a month, and I do it in a day. And she's like, oh my gosh, it was never about the money. It was just a game to me. So that changed the mindset, thinking, oh, I better pay attention to this guy. Because I had no formal education, barely passed public high school. So we clashed, and then we'd go up to events and I'm like, hey, this person here, Tatiana, is a billionaire. This person here is some celebrity or runs some big corporation. And she'd be very uncomfortable. She's like, what am I supposed to say to this person? And so, I can relate to when people say their spouse or partners or any other is uncomfortable meeting people. Right? Because I was always meeting people to always shake hands with people who are already living my lifestyle where I want to be in 2 years from now. And I'd get around wealthy people to study about what they do, right? And learn from them, right? How does this person raise $100 million a year? How does this person go out and raise a couple $1 million? How does this person build $1 billion company? How does this person run 10 Ironman? How does that work, right? So I'd see these overachieving people in business or sports or finance and think, well, how do they do that? But it was very intimidating at first with the relationship. And now Tatiana's fully on board. She gets it now. But there was a few times where my stuff was on the front lawn and the relationship was over, right? And I remember we first sat down in the early days and having financial meetings. And she'd say to me, so, what assets do you own? I said, well, I own nothing, but I control everything. Smart guy, wise guy. Why are you being sarcastic? I said, no.
Yeah, what the hell do you mean by that?
Yeah. And she's like, well, what do you buy? I said, I buy income producing assets, right? What the heck's an income producing asset? And I started using this jargon and language there. She's like, well, talk normal, talk like normal people talk. I'm like, I am, I'm like, why are you going to these open houses? You're not buying a house. I'm going to meet with the realtors. I'm going to meet with the mortgage brokers. I'm going to network with people. Yeah, but you're misleading people. You're going to these houses and you're wasting people's time. Well, I'm going to learn. I'm getting ideas and creativity and imagination and stuff. So a lot of different things, but I'm grateful for her because she
Yeah.
taught me a lot of how maybe people who never spoke up or past relationships that didn't work out, that we never had those conversations or uncomfortable conversations, people just disappear. Whereas Tatiana was vocal and saying like, why are you doing this? And then I'm like, well, this is just what I do. And I'm like, I've
Mhm.
never had to explain to myself why I do this. And she's like, but then she's really curious, thinking, well, Darren, I don't know why you're doing this. Why are you getting on a plane from here and flying to London, England for a meeting for a couple hours? Like, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, there's just common sense. And then she realized, Darren, I don't understand why you're doing that. So then I started to explain it and unpack it, thinking, okay, that's somebody completely from the outside, different world, who's never been exposed to this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Sounds to me like both of you were smart enough to allow yourselves to be uncomfortable
Yeah.
and get through the other side.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
For sure. Yeah.
if
Oh, yeah.
more people could do that, wow, would the world be a better place?
When you get on the same page, unbelievable. Like, we own a lot of real estate now across North America. We're
Yeah.
involved in multiple
Yeah.
companies and businesses, international foundation, all this stuff that's happened in less than 10 years between her and I. And yet the
Yeah.
first 3 years of the relationship was just up and down like a roller coaster, right? And people on speed dial for intervention, and me taking courses and seeing counselors and therapists and all that stuff, because we're like man, because like when we're on, it's phenomenal, but when the gloves go off, man, it gets bloody at center ice, and it was brutal, and it was like, but now we've worked through that. And we realize there's so much deep love between us, and we're very similar but very different, right? Different personality styles. Tatiana is extremely organized, very methodical, step by step, and I'm very visionary, very actionary. But we're a powerful couple, but we're very complementary in business. We make a great couple. The drawback where we have is sometimes we get so immersed in entrepreneurship and businesses that we don't take the bucket of just relationship. Right? It's just turn everything off, and it's just her and I in relationship. No business, no investing, nothing. It's her and I just getting to know each other as two human beings in a relationship. And that's the struggle sometimes that we have to dance with.
Yeah. Well, also smart enough to recognize that and go through the uncomfortableness of that.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be the most important gold nugget of this meeting, of this interview. Because I tell you, you can get so much done when you're on board with your partner that you
Oh,
love.
yeah.
And I know you have a fur baby, and we have 5 human babies. They're all grown up now. And it's pretty special when
Yeah.
you can get that done. And it's not easy. It is very challenging. So folks,
For sure.
wherever you're at, if you're listening or you're watching this, I can tell you firsthand, my husband and I have been through some stuff, and it's worth it. It's
Absolutely. I'm sure it
100%
is.
worth it. And we're not done yet. We're
No.
not done yet. So, okay. Now, tell me about how you started getting into hiking in the first place, because that's going
Yeah.
to lead into some other stuff that you've got going on for this
So, yeah.
world-changing Darren Jacklin stuff. Sorry, by the way, Sir Darren Jacklin. Folks, Darren is a knight.
I got knighted.
Like,
Yeah.
he's literally a knight. We'll touch on that too.
Sure.
But let's start with hiking.
Yeah. So just before COVID-19, just before the pandemic started, I was in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada, speaking at an international real estate conference of the who's who in real estate. But 1,200 people in the audience at this international conference, and some major players in real estate were in the room. It's kind of like the Grammy Awards for real estate. And I fly in from Vancouver, and I'm at the hotel in Niagara Falls, and I realize the next day I have this brand new dress shirt and brand new suit on, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to probably blow the buttons on my dress shirt. And I don't even know if my pants are gonna be able to fill up, because I'm eating so much fast food. I'm addicted to sugar and junk food, potato chips, ice cream, all that stuff. And I was just obsessed with eating potato chips and ice cream. And I'm like, I'm so embarrassed. And so I discussed with myself. So I go do the presentation, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like I'm deciding where I'm gonna stand on stage so I don't pop my buttons. Get back to my hotel room, get so disgusted with myself. I called 2 friends of mine that are real estate agents in Vancouver. I said, when I get back to Vancouver, I said, I want to come out hiking with you. This is just a few years ago. And so we go to North Vancouver to a place called Quarry Rock in Deep Cove. It's a little hill that kids can do it in elementary school. It'll take about 40 minutes to an hour to climb it. I'm stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. I get to the top. It takes me 2 hours and 40 minutes. The average person would be 40 minutes to an hour. And I get to the top, I am completely out of breath and I'm done. Like I need to lay down and have a nap. The two people I'm with, because it's the weekend, they have to do open houses. So I said, Darren, we need to leave you. We have to go do our open houses. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, how do I get back? And they go, well, just walk down the hill. I'm like, well, yeah, it's not that easy. I'm done. I'm out of shape. I'm out of breath. So I sit on the rock and I'm thinking to myself, I don't want to call the fire department. I don't want to call 911. I don't want to call search and rescue. This is embarrassing. This is just a little hill. So I'm like, unbelievable. So I lay down and I have a power nap. I wake up. I then hike back down. It takes me over 5 hours to get back to the parking lot round trip. Open my car door. I sit in my car and I say to myself, I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I said, I'm 48 years old. I'm almost 50. I am not, I'm out of gas and I'm not even 50 years of age. And I'm so out of shape and out of breath. And so I say to the people, I want to join a hiking group with you. So I'm going to commit to like 15 minutes, maybe an hour a week. That's it. All I can do. So I get all psyched up to go to a hike for an hour for a week and be completely exhausted. And that's how I started. And I started to document my journey on my social media channels. People started following me on my social media.
Yep.
Yeah. And then I started releasing all this weight. I released 45 pounds in weight from hiking. Right? No magic stuff, just hiking consistently, put into my calendar, following through on my calendar, released 45 pounds in weight. And then a buddy of mine calls me up in 2022 and he said, hey, Darren, I saw that you got knighted by the royal family of Cappadocia out of Spain, royal family of Spain. Congratulations on that, getting yourself in the best shape possible. I'm turning 40 in 2023. I want you to be part of my Mount Kilimanjaro hiking team to go to Tanzania, East Africa. I'm like, yeah, right. You want me? I'm not an athlete. You want me? Why would you like call me and ask me that question? That's like you and I say we're gonna go ride a bull in a rodeo. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like what you want me to actually go climb 19,340 feet in elevation? Are you crazy? Like, and he's like, Darren, you can train for it. You've got 1 year. And so I said, no, I'm not going. He absolutely not, I'm not going. He goes, Darren, listen, before you're completely out, would you do me a favor? Would you call a friend of mine in Phoenix, Arizona? I said, for what? I don't need to call anybody. I'm just telling you, I'm not going. He was just call his friend of mine. So I call this guy up. This guy's 100% legally blind. And he's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and Mount Everest base camp, 100% legally blind, unassisted, using a bear belt.
Wow.
And so the guy told me, he said, listen, what's your excuses? All excuses are equal. So I call up Aaron and I said, my buddy Aaron, I said, Aaron, I guess I'm in. So I trained for a full year and I set an impossible goal. Climbing Mount Kilimanjaro was I have over 7,000 written goals for my life, over 7,000. And climbing Mount Kilimanjaro was an impossible goal. I had no idea how or who I was going to talk to actually figure out how to get my meat suit up to 19,340 feet with taking oxygen with me. And I summited on July 14th of 2023 at 7:20 in the morning. And it was a defining moment in my life when I realized I achieved an impossible goal, something I never thought imagined I'd ever do. The interesting thing was I never realized I was starting to create and birth a global movement around mental health awareness and how many people are suffering in silence from mental health around the world. And we all know somebody in our families, our neighborhoods, our communities, our workplaces that suffer from mental health and who suffer silently. And what happened was a lot of people on my social media channels started to come out privately, direct messaging me saying, I'm suffering from mental health. And you've been such an inspiration with your health journey of releasing the weight, hiking to now climbing these different mountains. And then people started asking if they'd come join me. And I went from myself to sometimes 150 people joining me in one day hiking.
Yeah.
And then we did a couple pilots and then
Darren,
we thought,
Darren, are you saying you're Forrest Gump?
Yeah. Yeah. Feels that way.
You're the Forrest Gump of hiking. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then people started saying, hey, why don't we start charging a registration fee for hiking?
Yep.
And then collect money and have corporate sponsors just collect that money, put it through Link Foundation.
Yep. And
let's take a hike and build a school. So now we're committed to building 100 schools around the world. We've already started building our first schools over in West Africa. Now we're going to Honduras and Central America. So now people come out, they take a hike, we build a school. So now they come out, they get a chance to network with some really cool people from all over the world, influential, successful, decision-making people, have enriching, inspiring, collaborative conversations. And then when they leave, they get a chance to put their fingerprints on building schools, actively or passively. And they can say, yeah, I went out and took a hike and built a school. And now I'm part of building schools around the world for some of the most impoverished children for the next generation.
And this is through the Link Foundation. So
yes.
Take us through what Link stands for and a little bit of history. And yes, let's get more into the details on the next hike so that people can get involved.
So Tatiana, being a high school teacher for 35 years,
Yes.
she felt like a number in the school system. She was just a statistic. She was a number. She was an employee ID number at the school district. And what she felt was, and a lot of people are, as we know, are frustrated with the public school system, right? It hasn't changed for a long time. A lot of things are outdated. Kids' attention spans in schools today, now with chat GTP and artificial intelligence, it's like kids sit there and they're bored in school. And Tatiana was one of these teachers when she first went in, she wanted to make a difference. And she got a lot of constructive feedback and a lot of people, a lot of pushback from her colleagues and a lot of educators. So in 2018, when I retired her from teaching after 35 years and she came to work with me as my CEO to run the day-to-day operations, she felt over the first couple of years that, wow, I can make a difference now as an entrepreneur, right? I'm not going to get no 1,000 times in the school system, right? Entrepreneurs want to say, yes, let's figure it out. So we just started to build a team, and it took a long time. Tatiana will tell you, like getting 3 PhDs dealing with the government, because the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing a lot of times. And we got Link Foundation, LYNK, Link Foundation, registered in the United States of America as a federal foundation in the USA, and also in Canada. It's in total compliance. And we've committed $100 million over the next decade towards global philanthropy projects, primarily starting with school, because I've done multiple humanitarian trips around the world, and Tatiana did one with me to Liberia, West Africa a few years ago. And when you walk into a rural village, no matter where it is in the world, whether you're in India or you're Africa or other parts of the planet, and you speak to the women in the villages, their great gift that they want you to grant them is education. Education changes a village. Education will change a nation. And so we thought, what if we so it's really interesting. Here I am, a kid in special education, grade 1 to grade 12, labeled most likely not to ever succeed, failed grade 1 of public school, childhood trauma all around that. And now later, resenting school teachers going through the system. Now I'm in a relationship with a woman who was a school teacher for 35 years, and now I'm building. So our voids in life create our value system. Something I despise. I used to hate school as a kid. I was so bored. Now I'm building schools around the world, and now using hiking, which I never hiked before in my life because it was work. And I had to, go out in the wilderness and all that stuff and deal with wild animals and all that. Now I'm obsessed with hiking every day. And now it's a global movement. And now we're making a difference. And now people's lives are changing through the networking opportunities, through the collaboration, through Link Foundation. And now it's created this whole movement that's now enriching and making a difference in the next generation. So it's quite interesting how my crises and things I've now turned into opportunities that are now serving humanity, making a global impact on people's lives. It's just fascinating how it all works when you unpack it and unfold it and look at it. It's brilliant what it is, but it's making a huge difference in people's lives.
Go full circle, sir.
Yeah.
Sir Darren Jacklin. All right.
Yeah.
So in order for people to register for your next hike, called Take a Hike, Build a School, the information is around here. The link is around here. If you can't find it, you need to private message me, or you need to private message Darren, and all the information will be sent to you. So you can choose to donate. You can show up at the hike and participate in it. Again, there's an entry fee, and it goes toward this amazing cause. So, and in addition to that, you're going to surround yourself with other like-minded people, which is so important to do. You're going to be out in nature, good for your mind, good for your health, a win-win all around. You're probably going to be sore the next day. I'll just tell you that, folks. You're probably going to be sore the next day, but
it's a good sore.
It's a good sore, and it'll remind you of the good work that you did. So, I think that's a perfect place to end off. Do you have anything else to add before we sign off today here, Darren?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just realize that, anything you really, really want in your life is going to come through a network of conversations, and your environment is stronger than your willpower. So if you feel like you're not winning right now in life, get around people who are winning. Change up your environment. Yeah. And that's why I invite you to come up with us, hikingfundraiser.com, because we have people flying and driving in from all over North America, all parts of the United States of America, people registered all over Canada, and some of the international off-continent. And the cool thing is you just never know who you're going to meet and have a conversation with. That one person, that new person, that stranger that you meet could be somebody who defines and changes your future of your life. You just never know. Just trust the process.
Or they could be somebody who knows somebody who could change the direction of your life. So, keeping that in mind as well. So, Thank you for being
My pleasure. Yeah.
a world changer, Darren. I'm so lucky to know you. I can't wait to see you. I know I get to see you soon.
Yeah.
Thank you again for the work that you and Tatiana are doing. And everybody, thank you for listening. We will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.